Why doing everything right still leaves you with high blood pressure. I was cutting salt to fix my blood pressure, like unplugging my smoke detector to fix a house fire. Technically, something happened. The fire did not notice. I did everything they told me to do. Less salt, more cardio, more water. My blood pressure sat there completely unbothered, and for years, I just assumed I wasn't trying hard enough. Most people with persistently high blood pressure are not lazy. They are cutting salt, walking daily, eating whole foods, and still watching their numbers stay stubbornly elevated. That gap between effort and result is not a mystery. It is a sign that the wrong problem is being solved. The traditional model says less sodium means less pressure. That logic works for some people. For many others, it barely moves the needle. Because there is a hormonal system operating in the background, activated multiple times throughout the day, quietly telling the kidneys to hold on to sodium regardless of how little salt is being consumed. It does not show up on a food label. It does not respond to cardio. That system is driven by insulin, and the problem is not how much the body produces, it is how often it is being triggered. What insulin is actually doing to your blood pressure. I thought insulin was a diabetes thing, like assuming the check engine light only matters if the car is smoking. Mine wasn't smoking. The engine was still broken. Insulin is not designed to stay high. It spikes when you eat, moves glucose into your cells, and falls back to baseline. That rise and fall signals multiple systems throughout your body about what state it is in. When insulin rises, your kidneys hold on to sodium. Your sympathetic nervous system stays slightly more active. Your blood vessels enter a state of increased reactivity. All normal, as long as insulin falls again. The problem starts when it never falls. Breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, snack. Each one seems harmless. Together, they create a state of chronic low-grade insulin elevation that never fully resolves. Research published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that frequent eating prevents insulin from returning to baseline. A hormone that never falls behaves completely differently from one that rises and resolves. Your kidneys, your blood vessels, and your nervous system never get the signal to stand down. How insulin tells your kidneys to hold on to sodium. My kidneys are like a very obedient golden retriever. Loyal, hardworking, will absolutely fetch the wrong thing if that is what you threw. They can filter 200 liters of blood a day and manage dozens of hormonal signals simultaneously. What they cannot do is question their instructions. And I had been throwing the wrong thing every few hours for years. Your kidneys do not respond to food. They respond to signals. When insulin is elevated, the kidneys receive one clear instruction: retain sodium. This happens directly inside the nephron, where insulin stimulates sodium reabsorption in the proximal tubule and the collecting duct. Research published in Hypertension, the Journal of the American Heart Association, confirmed that insulin directly activates the epithelial sodium channel in the kidney's collecting duct, increasing sodium retention completely independent of dietary sodium intake. This is why cutting salt works for some people and barely moves the needle for others. This was not a design flaw. When meals were infrequent and insulin had hours to fall, the sodium retention was self-correcting. The kidneys held briefly, then released. The modern eating pattern broke that cycle. When insulin stays elevated continuously, the kidneys stay locked in retention mode. Cutting dietary sodium in that environment is like trying to empty a bathtub with the tap still running. You slow the fill, you never empty it. Why fit people get high blood pressure too. I spent years assuming that people with high blood pressure just weren't trying hard enough. Eating bad, skipping the gym, making poor life choices. Then I found out you can be running half marathons, eating kale, and still have the internal metabolic situation of someone who considers the drive-thru a food group. Fit on the outside, chaos on the inside. The body is a spectacular deceiver. BMI and visible fitness are poor proxies for metabolic health. A significant number of people who appear lean and active have what researchers call TOFI, thin outside, fat inside. Their external appearance suggests health. Their internal environment tells a completely different story. Visceral fat, packed around internal organs, particularly the liver, is metabolically active in ways subcutaneous fat is not. It releases inflammatory signals, interferes with insulin signaling, and drives chronic insulin resistance even in people with normal body weight. A study in obesity research involving over 3,000 participants found that approximately 1 in 4 people with normal BMI had metabolic abnormalities, including insulin resistance and elevated blood pressure. Several common factors accelerate this without changing the number on the scale. Women going through menopause lose muscle and gain visceral fat even when overall weight stays stable. Chronic sleep deprivation deposits fat preferentially in the visceral compartment. Moderate alcohol consumption contributes to fatty liver and insulin resistance. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, directing fat storage toward the organs. The result is elevated blood pressure that appears from nowhere in people who genuinely believe they are doing everything right. The one mistake healthy people make every single day. I used to carry snacks everywhere, like a squirrel preparing for a winter that never came. Almonds in my bag, protein bar in my car, fruit on my desk. I was the picture of healthy eating. 6 small meals, never hungry, totally on top of it. Meanwhile, my insulin had not dropped below elevated since approximately 2019, and my kidneys were retaining sodium like it was their full-time job. I gave it to them. The single pattern driving persistently elevated blood pressure in otherwise healthy people is not what they are eating. It is how often they are eating. Specifically, it is consuming food or drink frequently enough throughout the day that insulin never fully returns to baseline between eating occasions. Grazing, eating small amounts continuously, keeps insulin elevated for 14 to 16 hours a day. Even when every individual food choice is genuinely healthy, whole grains, lean protein, fruit, nuts, all of these trigger insulin release. Spaced 2 to 3 hours apart, they create a continuous hormonal signal that never fully resolves. Liquid calories make this worse. Smoothies, protein shakes, juice, and even moderate alcohol are absorbed faster than solid food, producing sharper insulin spikes with longer tails of elevation. They feel light and harmless. Hormonally, they are not. Late-night eating extends insulin elevation into the hours when the body is supposed to be in deep metabolic rest. When insulin stays elevated overnight, the kidneys retain sodium through the early morning hours. That shows up as elevated blood pressure first thing in the morning, in people who went to bed convinced they had done everything right. Why the modern food environment is working against you. Modern food culture has decided that going more than 2 hours without eating is basically a medical emergency. There are protein bars at the checkout. There are smoothie stations at the gym. There are healthy snack subscriptions you can have delivered to your door so you never accidentally experience the sensation of not eating. We have built an entire industry around preventing your insulin from ever coming down. We just marketed it as wellness. The modern food environment was not designed around human hormonal biology. It was designed around convenience, profit, and the assumption that eating frequently throughout the day is normal, necessary, and healthy. Every shop, every petrol station, every office break room has been stocked accordingly. Snacking has been normalized to the point where going more than 3 hours without eating feels like a personal failure. Protein bars are marketed as essential fuel. Smoothies are marketed as health food. Dried fruit, granola, and nut packs are marketed as smart choices. None of them are bad foods in isolation. All of them extend the insulin elevated window when consumed between meals. The infrastructure of modern life creates constant eating as the path of least resistance. Food is delivered to your door in minutes. Vending machines exist in hospitals. Even health food shops are lined floor to ceiling with convenient, portable, individually packaged insulin triggers dressed up in earthy packaging and wellness language. Our hormonal systems were designed for a world where eating required effort and long gaps between meals were completely normal. That world no longer exists by default. You have to actively rebuild it, which means understanding why it matters in the first place. What actually lowers blood pressure biologically? I treated my blood pressure like a game I could win by just adding more stuff. More walks, more vegetables, more supplements lined up on the counter like tiny soldiers waiting for orders. I had a blood pressure app. I had a food journal. I had opinions about sodium that I would share with anyone who asked, and several people who did not. None of it worked well enough, and I could not figure out why. Then I found the one thing nobody had mentioned, and it had nothing to do with adding anything at all. The most effective intervention for chronically elevated blood pressure driven by insulin is not a new food or supplement. It is creating a continuous block of time, ideally 8 to 12 hours, where nothing that stimulates insulin secretion is consumed. Insulin falls. The kidneys receive the signal to release sodium. blood volume normalizes, pressure drops. Research published in Cell Metabolism found that restricting eating to a 10-hour window without changing what or how much people ate produced significant reductions in blood pressure, improved cholesterol, and better glucose regulation. Same food, different timing, completely different biological outcome. Sleep is non-negotiable here. Just 4 nights of sleep restriction reduces insulin sensitivity by approximately 30% in healthy adults. Poor sleep raises baseline insulin resistance, which means more insulin required, more sodium retained, and higher pressure, regardless of everything else done correctly. What this looks like when it actually works. I was out here taking a blood pressure pill every morning while my hormones were doing whatever the heck they wanted, like putting a bucket under a broken pipe and calling it a renovation. When eating is compressed into a narrower window without changing food quality or quantity, the biology responds quickly. Insulin falls during the fasting period. The kidneys release sodium. The sympathetic nervous system downregulates. Blood vessels regain their ability to produce nitric oxide and relax. Blood pressure drops, sometimes within weeks. Medications work better in this environment because the upstream driver is no longer fighting against them. The same dose produces better results. In some cases, doses can be reduced, always under medical supervision. This is not about restriction. It is about timing. Give the system the reset it was always designed to perform. Your blood pressure does not stay high because you are broken. It stays high because you have been solving the symptom while the cause runs completely unchallenged in the background. The tap has a name. Now you know what it is. Subscribe and like.